The UK gets ready to decide its future. It's in or out, a 5 News Tonight referendum special. The final push for votes, we join leaders from both sides as they make their pleas to the nation.
Go out and vote Remain. Go out and vote Remain for a bigger, better Britain inside a reformed European Union.
There's a great chance now for our country to take back control of things that are really important to us, and particularly our democracy.
The clock is counting down until polling stations open, and soon it's down to you.
I spent the day on a cross-channel ferry finding out whether passengers here are going to vote for a return ticket to Europe or a one-way ticket to leave.
And what about our EU neighbours? I'm here on the continent to find out how they view the referendum. Do they want us to stay or go?
Tonight I'll be joined by politicians and commentators from both sides as they debate right up to the wire. Also this evening, celebrating the life of Jo Cox, her husband and children, on what would have been her 42nd birthday. And
if my accuser wanted to damage me, he did it. I don't think I'll ever be quite the same again.
Sir Cliff Richard speaks out over the abuse allegations that he says almost ruined his life. Good evening, I'm Matt Barbet. Welcome to In or Out, a 5 News Tonight referendum special live here from Westminster. It's been discussed for years. The date was decided months ago and the arguments seem to have been raging, well, forever. But now the time is almost here. At 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, polling stations will open and you can finally have your say on one of the biggest decisions in the nation's history. The question is a simple one. Should the United Kingdom remain a member of the European Union or leave the European Union? What the answer will be, well, even at this late stage, it's still very far from clear. Today, 5 News has been with leaders from both sides on their final day of campaigning. In a moment, we'll hear from the Prime Minister, who's hoping to keep Britain in the EU. First, though, Catherine Jones has been with Boris Johnson as he's been continuing to argue why he thinks we should leave.
Look at this.
Boris Johnson visiting the offices of the local paper in Wolverhampton, where he worked as a junior reporter almost 30 years ago.
Look at that, that is extraordinary.
The Express and Star ran an article by him this week, making the case, as he so often has, for Britain to exit the EU.
There's a great chance now for our country to take back control of things that are really important to us, and particularly our democracy. Yes, it's about money, a bit, quite a lot of money we could get back. It's about immigration control, a bit, that would be very important. But basically it's about how you run your country and who's in charge of it.
Boris is making the most of the final hours of campaigning. Until 10 last night he was on live TV, yet by 5:30 he was up to visit Billingsgate Fish Market in London. After a photo call in Essex, he headed north to Leicestershire for a walkabout before his lunchtime stopover in Wolverhampton, where people in the city centre are still as divided as the opinion polls suggest.
You know what you've got just now. You're getting into the unknown if you vote to come out, I would say.
I think things will be better out than in.
And I don't think it would be in the UK's best interest to go it alone, not in the sort of world we're living in today. We all need each other.
I think it's time to come out to stop all this. We need borders, we need control, and we need Cameron to go away.
If people vote leave because they hate Cameron, they just have a feeling, does that matter?
I don't think that is the reason people are voting, or none of those are the reasons I hope that
they will be for some people.
Well, the people I've been talking to and the people that we're trying to appeal to are people who basically think that democracy is a good thing.
So it does matter what motivates people to vote?
I want people to vote for a positive programme that we're setting out, which is to take back control of huge sums of money, of our borders, and basically of our democracy. To Sharon.
Boris is the big political hitter who has given the Leave campaign its momentum. If the UK does vote to leave the European Union tomorrow, it will be in large measure down to the promises that this man has made. Catherine Jones, 5 News, Wolverhampton.
It's the start of the day in Bristol, and David Cameron's brought along some friends, a former Labour deputy leader and a former Prime Minister, whose time in office was virtually wrecked by rows about Europe. But they're all here to back his message.
Stronger, safer, better off. A day to go. Let's do it. Thank you very much.
David Cameron has the support of people here, but to convince anyone out there still undecided, he has just a few hours left. On the bus, we spoke to David Cameron. First, Michael Gove for the Leave campaign compared pro-Remain experts to German scientists doing the Nazis' bidding. He did apologise later. But what did the Prime Minister make of it?
I think the overwhelming weight of opinion of business and entrepreneurs and job creators and then economists and independent institutions to somehow compare these to, you know, what is it today we're told they're being compared to sort of Nazi sympathisers or something. It's nuts, absolutely nuts. We should listen to experts about the good of our economy.
Nervous?
You're always nervous in any election, and this is obviously a huge, huge issue, much bigger than a general election. And people aren't voting on this government's future or that government's future. They're voting on this. They're voting on Britain Stronger in Europe. They're voting on a really profound question about the future of our country. And I hope people today will, you know, they'll go home and they'll look at their children and think of their grandchildren, and they'll think, what sort of country and world do we want for them, and where will opportunities be greater? Because we will live this, people of my age will live with this decision for a few decades, but these people will live with this decision for their lifetime.
But some are still making up their minds.
I can see benefits on both sides, even up to this very late stage.
Can you imagine getting in the polling booth and making your mind up there and then?
I'll make my mind up before I go in. I think I won't leave it that late.
I think we ought to stand on our own 2 feet. I think we're governed by an awful lot of people. There are a few people that have their say, but I don't think sometimes they listen.
In.
Why?
I suppose a couple of reasons. I preferred the campaign and the manner they went about it. I think you have more to say if you have a seat at the table in the EU. I think leaving is a mistake.
It's more than 3 years since he announced we would have this referendum. Now, after 10 weeks of official campaigning, countless speeches, rallies and debates, we are just hours away from the voters having the final say.
And Andy is in Downing Street for us now. Andy, who do you think is going to be feeling the most confident tonight?
Well, I thought David Cameron, when I spoke to him earlier today, Matt, seemed pretty relaxed, but he did admit to being nervous, and who can blame him? I think that neither side, frankly, will be feeling confident, because really the evidence is this is still very close. I think what we can say is that on the Leave side, voters are more fired up, more passionate. And what that may mean for the Remain side is that they're relying on the people who have kind of weighed up the options and on balance come down believing that they want Britain to stay in the EU. For the Remain side, they are hoping that those people will actually get out and vote, and therefore turnout is going to be a big issue, and it could be affected by the weather. It's meant to be pretty wet in the southeast, for instance. And just one more thought on that. A lot of people have already voted by post, and what we're hearing anecdotally is that of the people who registered to have a postal vote, the number of people who've actually used it is higher than normal. So that could point to a high turnout, and that could make this result even more unpredictable.
Andy, many thanks for now. Well, let's discuss all of this. From the Remain campaign, I'm joined by Liberal Democrat MP Tom Brake, and from the Leave campaign, Justice Minister Dominic Raab. And I'd like to begin by asking you both, what is the one single issue, the main issue, that's decided which way you're going to vote? Tom?
Well, I'm proud to be an Englishman, I'm proud to be British, but there are occasions where we need to resolve things at a European level, issues like climate change, for instance. It's very clear the EU has made a fantastic contribution to the prosperity within the UK. So it's partly about working with others in other countries, the people that are closest to us, to secure the best for the UK.
Dominic, what's the main issue for you?
Optimism. We've heard so much scaremongering, not from Tom in fairness, but from the Remain campaign for 4 months, and I'm an optimist. I think Britain's better days lie ahead, but that we can only realise our full potential. We take off the shackles of the EU, take control of our economy, our borders and immigration policy, and take back control of our democracy. And it was interesting, one thing that came out today from Jean-Claude Juncker, the top bureaucrat in Brussels, that he said you won't get any further change after this referendum. What you see is what you get. And that therefore anyone that's thinking about hoping the EU will change have heard from the horse's mouth that that is not on the cards. So vote Leave on Thursday, take back control.
You say optimism, but it is the I word that's defined a lot of the Leave campaign, the immigration. You mentioned it there. And that has been fear-mongering, not least people from UKIP. They've been accused of fear-mongering with their poster, and they're on your side.
Well, they're not in the Vote Leave campaign. But look, I think we need...
significant part.
Tom, let you come in after us, but they're not part of the Vote Leave campaign. And we've said we need to take back control of our immigration policy and our borders because it has uncontrolled immigration, can have a huge impact on jobs, on wages, on housing, on public services like the NHS. And I'm a son of a refugee, my wife's from Latin America. I want the public to have confidence in our immigration system. You will not get that unless we come out of the EU.
I think the problem for the Leave campaign is there is actually no clear position on what they want to do in relation to immigration, because clearly we have someone like Nigel Farage, who is UKIP are a significant part of this campaign. The sort of people who a couple of weeks ago in Wallington High Street accused some of the Leave campaigners as being traitors. They are part of that campaign. So we have him who wants less immigration, but then we have Boris Johnson, who talks about an amnesty for illegal immigrants, and people in my constituency putting out leaflets saying we want more Australians. So it's not clear what they want.
Just very quickly, isn't the key to that actually politicians may have different views, but a democratically elected government accountable to your viewers get to decide?
Exactly that point, Tom. You're talking about your constituents who put you where you are. Well, did any of us put people like Jean-Claude Juncker where he is?
Well, we have many senior civil servants who work in the UK, and we put them there in the same way that he has been put there by the European...
democratically elected politicians.
Exactly.
These people are not democratically elected, are they?
Well, they aren't, but they are people who are appointed by the different governments, and of course there are a number of locks that are in place. So we have the members of the European Parliament who are elected by us, who can block any legislation. We also have the Council of Ministers, where, for instance, when Home Affairs and Justice matters are discussed, our Home Secretary is there, or our Justice Secretary is there discussing things and can block things. So we have those locks in place.
Let's just finish off by talking about the bigger picture here. How do you think the campaigning on both sides has gone? Because a lot of people are upset by generally how nasty it's been, and there has been Project Fear perhaps on both sides.
Well, I think there has been on both sides. My real worry is that this was an opportunity to talk to people about the benefits and also the disbenefits of our membership of the European Union.
It's imperfect.
That simply hasn't happened. No, it's not perfect, but we needed to talk about some of the positives. We've not had that in 30 years in the UK. Addressing that in 3 months was never going to be sufficient.
Dominic, final word to you, please.
Look, there's always a rambunctious, noisy democratic debate. I think Tom and I have managed to sensibly and responsibly talk about this, but the bottom line is this. If you're an optimist, if you believe in this country, if you're fed up of being told we can't stand on our own 2 feet, you vote Leave, you take back control, and you make sure we're masters of our own destiny.
If you're an optimist, that you'll vote Remain.
Thank you both very much indeed. As I said, right up to the wire, the debate, so that's what the politicians think. But what about you? For a lot of us, travelling to the rest of Europe means sailing across the Channel. So we decided to test those waters by taking a ferry from Dover to Calais, the shortest distance between Britain and continental Europe at least. Minnie Stevenson is on that ferry right now, which is docking in Calais as we speak. Minnie, what have been people been telling you on board?
Hi Matt, well it's not every day that you can say you're live from a cross-channel ferry, and as you can see we have just arrived in Calais just moments ago. Now all day we've been on board talking to passengers here. It's just a 21-mile journey across the water, but it will of course be an entirely different journey if Britain decides to leave the EU. So now let's hear from those passengers who are making the big decision on whether they'll stay or go. From Dover to Calais, a journey along the English Channel steeped in history. But if the UK leaves the EU, it could be a very different journey altogether. We are about to embark on a day trip of our own. With the vote upon us, we've been finding out which way the tide is turning for these passengers, in or out. Ahmed is off on a boys' holiday to watch the Euros, and I'm gate crashing. He told me he thinks the right road to take is Remain.
I'm going to go with staying.
And why is that?
Because I just think there's a lot more certainty to it. There are a lot more concrete facts.
And is staying in the EU or leaving the EU the talk of your boys' holiday? Has it come up at all?
No.
Okay. But on the deck of the ferry, Sean, also a football fan on his way to France, is very much on the team to leave.
I'd say go out, try out, see how it goes.
But you can't go back from that. Would you be worried about that?
Well, Not particularly.
Last year, people from the UK visited a European country 52 million times. Take couple Sarah and Oliver. They regularly holiday on the continent and are voting to stay.
To carry on sort of building the bond with other European countries and learning languages rather than England or UK becoming more sort of isolated.
Now to defer to the soft play area, Pirate Island, where the future of our islands are being pondered. The McSweeney family may be on their way to France for a holiday, but their dad Joe thinks the UK should leave Europe for good.
So Joe, taking the kids on holiday, is it exciting at the moment or is it getting stressful yet?
We're getting there.
You wait. So which way would you like the vote to go?
I hope England or Britain leaves.
And why is that?
I just see the European Union as being some sort of super state.
As we turn back to these shores with passengers here clear on their destination, whichever path you take and whatever you decide, a new journey will begin. Minnie Stevenson, 5 News from the English Channel.
Back here in Westminster, we've had Blast of O to Joy, the European anthem, and also Dame Vera Lynn. I think that's pro-exit or Brexit, but still to come on this 5 News Tonight special programme, the rest of the day's news, including what does Europe think of our EU decision. We'll be finding out the feeling in France. Stay with me, we'll be back after this break. Welcome back. You're watching In or Out, a 5 News Tonight referendum special. And the campaign has been overshadowed very much by the shocking killing of MP Jo Cox last week. Today would have been her 42nd birthday. And to mark the occasion, ceremonies are being held to celebrate her life. Among them, a gathering in her home constituency of Batley and Spen, and events too in London, attended by her husband Brendan and their 2 young children. Dominic Reynolds reports.
They lived on this barge together. But today, Jo Cox's husband and her children sailed upriver without her. Beside Brendan, 5-year-old Coolin and 3-year-old Layla. They docked where she worked at Westminster. They would have been celebrating Jo's 42nd birthday today. Instead, they're celebrating her life. But they're not doing it alone.
She was a mountain climber, a runner, a cyclist, an avid reader, an awful cook, a swimmer, a great exaggerator, a wild food forager, a middle lane driver, a log carrier, a ball of energy and determination, and above all else, she was a mum. She was the best mum. She was the best mum that any child could wish for. And wish we do, to have her back in our lives.
And after that, the silence. In Batley, her constituency, the same scene.
My sister would want her murder to mobilise people, to get on with things, to try to make a positive difference in whatever way we can.
Over £1 million has been raised in Jo Cox's name in 3 days. Today at these events are bright lights shining on the causes she cared about. This was a person, her husband said, who met the world with love. Dominic Reynolds, 5 News.
Sir Cliff Richard says that suspects in sexual abuse cases should be allowed to remain anonymous until they are charged. He's given his first television interview since being told he won't face charges on historical allegations. The singer said he felt his reputation had been tarnished, and he condemned the terminology used by the Crown Prosecution Service.
The terminology is insufficient evidence. Well, insufficient evidence, my backside. If you can't have evidence for something that didn't happen. If my accuser wanted to damage me, you did it. I don't think I'll ever be quite the same again.
A Sudanese man who was caught walking through the Channel Tunnel from France has pleaded guilty to a charge of obstruction. Abdul Rahman Haroum was granted asylum in the UK after being caught near the end of the 31-mile tunnel last August. He was given a 9-month sentence but will go free because of time already served. Golfer Rory McIlroy has pulled out of the Olympic Games in Rio because of concerns about the Zika virus. The 27-year-old says even though the risks of infection are low, his and his family's health come first. And people going to the Glastonbury Festival have been asked to hold off from travelling there after the weather caused traffic problems outside. Some have waited 12 hours to get in. Once inside, heavy rain has made the festival fields extremely muddy and more wet weather is being forecast. Well, back to something very difficult to forecast, the referendum. We know opinion here is very much split, but what do other European countries think the UK should do? One survey showed that on the whole, they generally hope we stay. But the country most in favour of Britain leaving, France. Peter Lane has been out in Toulouse to gauge the feeling there.
Sun-kissed southern France, far away from the heat of the referendum countdown back home, but watching and waiting like the rest of Europe. The vote is front-page news here, and just as we found in the UK, it's viewed from many angles. At his newsstand in Toulouse, Christian sees potential benefit in Brexit.
If they want to go, they can go. It will be better for us, maybe for them.
But at her counter in the local market, Charlotte can't see how local life will change either way.
It's going to have an impact for the Europe, I think, in a few years. But for me, it doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything. So right now, no problem.
And Joanna, who promotes the arts festival here, is convinced the UK must stay.
The UK is different. It's an island, but it's the mixture of all those different cultures that works. And if we keep it united, we will have a vision of the future which will be stronger than if we keep it separated.
The UK may be physically removed from the continent, but what's the appetite here for further separation? So, taking a tour round Europe, how keen are our EU neighbours to keep us in the family? Well, the coldest shoulder comes from here in France. Only 41% of people think the UK should remain. The Spanish are the keenest at 64%. In Italy, it's 55%, and in Germany, 54%. Today, German Chancellor Angela Merkel repeated her call for a Remain vote, but said the EU would respect the outcome. She said, "Of course I want Britain to stay, but the decision is with the British citizens." Tonight, here in France and across the continent, all they can do is wait to see if the UK does walk away and how that might affect the EU it leaves behind.
Yeah, Peter, it seems like they're as divided over there as people are here.
Well, some within Europe see Britain as a troublemaker and think the EU would be better off without it. Others argue that Britain helps keep the EU in check. Certainly there are voices from within the likes of France, Italy and Germany now suggesting that they should follow Britain's lead and have their own referendums. But European leaders urge against that. And today here in France, President Hollande said that this vote isn't just about the future of the UK, it's about the future of the whole European Union.
Peter in Toulouse, thanks very much indeed. Well, over the past few months, we've seen all kinds of claim and counterclaim made from the sides chasing your vote, and politicians from the same parties have ended up as rivals. So whichever way it goes, what kind of impact is the referendum going to have in the long run? I'm joined now by political blogger and Leave supporter Paul Staines, editor of Guido Fawkes, and Remain supporter and former Conservative MP turned columnist, well, he was a columnist before actually, Matthew Parris. Good to see you both. Matthew, what do you think the effect in general is going to have on our political landscape here in the UK?
I think it will take decades for the wounds that have opened up during this campaign to heal. There's no way the Conservative Party is going to be brought back together. No way that the anti-European Leave people are going to change their minds. No way the Remain people are going to change their minds. And it's turned brother against brother, sister against sister.
Yes, I mean, looking at the party you represented in particular, Boris Johnson and David Cameron, are they ever going to be friends again?
How can you really regard someone as your friend who has essentially called you a liar? You simply can't. David Cameron will try to patch things up with as many of the Leave people as he can, but I really doubt whether some of them you could.
Paul, talk whichever way it goes tomorrow into Friday, that there could be another general election before the end of the year as a result of all of this.
David Cameron unfortunately has a sell-by date now, and he's the one who's decided on it.
Although we already knew that, yes.
But I think the sell-by date is now shorter, and Michael Gove and David Cameron have said they are supportive of David. If it is close, or if it is, well, let's just take the two options. If it's for Leave, I think David Cameron has gone by Friday afternoon.
Well, he'll announce his resignation, although he may announce it for a few months ahead.
He may delay it.
If it's stay?
If it's stay, then it depends how close it is. I mean, it's all about the margin. If it's 1%, 2%, then the game is on, and there will be a leadership challenge very soon.
I don't agree with that. I think if we get Remain, even if it's only by 1%, Remain will have won. The referendum will have decided it, and Cameron and Osborne and the rest will carry on. The bitterness will be there, but I don't think there's going to be a general election or any major constitutional upheaval.
Well, I don't agree with that, because I feel that the Leave side feels that certainly during the pre-Purdah period that the Etonians cheated. They basically rigged it. They spent £9 million on putting out their propaganda. They cheated.
But
and I think
you're getting your excuses in early.
No, I'm not getting my excuses in because I don't know the result. I'm not confident about the result. I think the feeling will be that the government really rigged the game. And they will not be feeling it's an equal, fair and square fight.
So, Paul, I mean, you're an Irish citizen yourself, but you're for the Leave campaign, but you just said that you're not confident of getting a result.
I don't know what the result will be.
You think it's too close to call at this stage?
Do you know what the result? I don't know.
No one knows. Of course, no one
The
does.
polls tonight, the final poll of polls says that Leave is ahead by 1%, but that is irrelevant. No one knows who's going to turn out. I think tomorrow, if you want to leave, get out there, vote Leave, take control.
Matthew, what are your hunches telling you?
I have enough faith in the British people to believe that in the end they're not going to take this wild leap into the dark. So
but you don't have any faith in the British people.
I do.
You have faith in the metropolitan elite. You've said it today in your columns. You think the people are terrible. Only the metropolitan elite can run the country, is what you said today.
You'll see the people are going to vote for Remain.
Let me just finish on one thing. It's not the metropolitan elite. It's not anyone.
Well, that's who he wants to run the country.
Inside political parties and inside families, people are disagreeing about this. It's changed everything, whatever way it goes, isn't it, Matthew?
Yes, it has. I think there are ructions actually within our own breasts. The call of the wild, which Guido here represents, Paul represents, and the voice of precaution, which I'm trying to speak for.
Paul, last word briefly to you.
Vote Leave, take control.
I thought you'd say that. Thank you both very much indeed. That's it from us here in Westminster this evening. You've been hearing what all the experts and the politicians think. Plenty of opinion, of course. But now it is, of course, down to you. Is Britain better off inside or outside the European Union? It's perhaps the biggest decision the UK, will ever take. The polls will be open from 7 o'clock in the morning. If you can vote and you don't vote, well, you can't have any complaints, can you, if you don't like that outcome? We will, of course, be back tomorrow, and then on Friday we'll have all the details of the result. For now, though, many thanks indeed for your company. We'll see you again tomorrow, 6:30. Bye-bye.